what has arguably been the most interesting first 2 weeks of any presidential transition, I have with me tonight the chairman of the American Conservative Union, Matt Schlapp, and Republican campaign strategist, Fox News contributor, Tony Sayegh. Good to see you both. Let me start with this visit to the Times, Matt. He doesn't like the Times. Why is he talking to the Times?
I don't know. I like what the final answer was. Basically, Donald Trump has said that he loves Twitter because he can communicate to a large audience without having all the losses like the New York Times seems to experience. And I think he ought to just continue to talk around these people who have no desire to cover anything fairly or give him a fair shake.
Well, he is, Tony, as you know, also coming off a big meeting with big shots from the networks and dressing them down, calling them basically awful people who are operating awfully. What do you think the point of it all is?
Look, this is leg one, Lou, of a victory lap, frankly. It's one in which Donald Trump is going to make it very clear that the terms are going to be dictated by him and his administration to a large degree, as well they should. Look, the New York Times coverage of this campaign was grotesque. It wasn't biased. It wasn't unfair. It was absolutely absurd. They fabricated stories. They printed headline after headline without substantiation. They took their editorial page and put it on the front of the New York Times cover. That has never been done in such a way by a paper that was supposed to be viewed as a paper of record. And there you see Donald Trump going to them right in their home court and being open with them, sharing news, telling them he's not going to necessarily appoint a special prosecutor against Hillary Clinton. And that is what you do when you win. You actually go in there, you become a little bit magnanimous.
Okay, but you put everything in the past tense. I haven't seen any let up at all in their nastiness, their vile behavior.
True enough. In fact, you know what was crazy? They reported there were too many lobbyists in the Trump transition team, and then Donald Trump, by appointing Mike Pence, got rid of all the lobbyists, and then they appointed there was discord in the Trump transition as a result. I mean, that just goes to show you how their editorial position completely dominates what they report.
Well, all I know is thank God then for the Washington Post, because the New York Times is so awful. At least we can rely on your city's newspaper for fair, objective, balanced, just terrific reporting. Wrong, right?
Wrong. Wrong again, Lou. I don't know. We're striking out a lot here with these papers. And the good news is that these newspapers are seriously getting reviews from the marketplace, and they're not doing well. And what Donald Trump did so masterfully in his campaign was simply went to the American people, and I've talked to people that says that that's how he's going to be as president. He's going to go out there and continue to engage the American people. It's very Reagan-esque, and I'm all for it.
Greatagain.gov. I'm going to say that a number of times because I think it's absolutely terrific. He has, I think it's about a 2.5-minute long video in which he's talking about what he's going to do and what his administration is going to do on their first day. I would recommend, I don't know if we have it up in font here, but greatagain.gov. And I have to say it is absolutely the most terrific approach on the part of, he's a president-elect, not a president, but this is a device and a tool for him to communicate to the American people with that I think it's going to be very hard for the Times, for the Post. I mean, if they want any kind of audience at all, they're going to have to comport somewhat to the truth and less to the nasty, vile instincts of their principal owners. In the case of the Post, it's Jeff Bezos. In the case of the New York Times, it is Carlos Slim, the Mexican billionaire who owns most of the company now.
That's right, Lou. In fact, they're not going to only have to compete with each other as media organizations. They're going to have to compete with Donald Trump as the provider of original content. We saw this throughout the entire campaign, how he mastered Facebook, all the social media and digital platforms to end around. And here's the untold story about 2016. Yes, Donald Trump got billions and earned media, but guess what? People listened and paid attention to him. That was the biggest difference. You can get earned media, but not necessarily the engagement. He got them both.
Matt, I mean, what has he got? Something like 30 million followers on Twitter, social media in total. And then to have this new device and then the power of the White House itself. I mean, I don't see why there would be anybody on the left who feels they could be successful in putting it gently, screwing with him.
That's right. I mean, we don't have to go through the gatekeepers to get our message out anymore. This is a great democratization for the American people, where, you know, we're having our own kind of spring over here in America where the president-elect can put out a message, and guess what? I get to see that message, and I watched that like millions of Americans. I got to see his own words in exactly the way he meant them, and I think it's refreshing, and it's how he's going to govern as president, and the American people are going to be better for this.
Well, one thing about it, the country is in desperate need of repair, and it is very clear that Donald Trump is the right man for the job. Matt Slapp and Tony Sayegh will be back with us here in just moments. We're going to examine carefully the cabinet choices made by the president-elect. That's right, we don't know a lot, but we have some informed guests here tonight. I frankly haven't got a clue, but we're going to listen to Tony and to Matt very, very carefully. Up next, Mitt Romney reporting reportedly the front runner now for Donald Trump's Secretary of State. The vice president-elect had this to say about the relationship between the two former adversaries. The record speaks, of course, for itself. Excuse me, we're back with Matt Slapp, Tony Sayegh, and Mitt Romney. Matt, can it be that President-elect Trump really will go for a man who tried to undercut him the entire way?
Well, I just have to say my reaction is to this, which is Mitt Romney, it was good of him to go meet with Donald Trump. I would certainly like Mitt Romney to get in line, but I think it would be a big mistake to bring him in and give him really the most important cabinet position after he did everything in his power to do everything he possibly could to destroy Donald Trump's candidacy. And I think for those of us who stuck with Donald Trump the whole way, I think it'd just be a gut punch for us. And I also think it'd be a big mistake to our allies overseas. The Secretary of State represents the president, and it's the personal emissary of the president. And I think everybody overseas would know that Mitt Romney would not have the president's interests at heart, and so they would be following up with the president constantly. I think it would break down our ability to have effective diplomacy. I think it'd be a mistake.
Tony?
Look, I certainly think other names being considered are strong ones. Rudy Giuliani, certainly. Ambassador Bolton, another one. That being said, I will suggest this. You've had historically traditional precedent created, particularly with the job of Secretary of State, to be given to somebody who's not always necessarily politically aligned with you during a campaign, but maybe during governing. And people have suggested that Mitt Romney and Donald Trump are not that terribly far apart on some of the most interesting trouble spots of the world. That being said, think of Lincoln, team of rivals. Barack Obama appointing Hillary Clinton, his biggest adversary, as Secretary of State. When you understand,
how
if you
did
look,
that work out? I mean, I'm just asking.
Well, she was not a terribly good one, but the point is, if you look at the Trump transition team, guys, forget about the campaign for a second. Pause, refocus. Look at their underlying message. It's unity. You've heard Kellyanne Conway mention it. You've heard a lot of the other principal surrogates mention this idea that they want to get people to unify around this administration. Whether or not you personally agree with the pick of Mitt Romney, it certainly would, at the very least, be a major point of unification, certainly on the Republican side.
I don't agree, because what it would actually do is sow seeds of discord with people who stood with Donald Trump. Look, I'm okay with Donald Trump going out and picking unconventional people for his cabinet, even people that weren't wild about his candidacy. I think the big difference between this example and other examples of history is you didn't go out there and pick someone who, in your own party, actively did everything they could to destroy you and to get Hillary Clinton to be elected president. As far as I'm concerned, Mitt Romney is someone who helped Hillary Clinton. I don't want Hillary Clinton to be in the cabinet, and I don't want Mitt Romney to be in the cabinet.
Matt, you and I both, I think, will agree that only Donald Trump or perhaps Vice President-elect Pence know how serious the Romney consideration is. I will say to you, though, the fact that this is part of the conversation shows a very important development, which is that Donald Trump is focusing on governing. And you and I have both been involved in enough campaigns to know there's a set of advisors when you run politically, and there's a set of people you bring in when you decide who you want to be with you to govern. There's room for both of them, by the way,
so let's talk
in
about
any
this,
administration.
Gentlemen,
let's talk about
this. Matt, I'm going to be a word here, partner, but we're way over time, and of course I've got 5 or 6 minutes of important concluding thoughts to share with
All right,
you.
I'll be fast. That's why you pick someone like John Bolton, because Mitt Romney is going to go to the State Department, and they are going to manhandle him because he doesn't know how to work this bureaucracy. Someone like John Bolton does, and this position is too important to give to a rookie.
All right. I keep thinking of the Donald Trump who famously, over the course of a campaign against, 16 opponents, he said, if you hit me, I'm going to hit you back 10 times as hard, or give you Secretary of State. I mean, it's sort of, it's sort of, to me, it's funny. And I am so, as I've said, I am just so petty. I just can't rise to that level. I couldn't possibly do it, a man who had acted as Romney did. But this is the Donald Trump presidency, and folks said it couldn't be done, and it couldn't be done his way, and they've all been proved wrong. Matt Schlapp, Tony Sayegh, thanks so much.